Hey, what's up, guys? I think it's time to get deep into this tactical meta and take a look and see what actually works. So you know already, I've talked a lot about FM Arena. It turns out that in addition to testing tactics and checking out to see what attributes actually are important and which ones aren't, there's a lot of information about different things you can do with individual tactics. I'll give you a little look at this, and then we'll see what kind of tactic it creates for us. So go over here to the screen view. You can see here, this is all tactical instruction testing on FM23, which is good because I haven't bought FM24 yet. So that means that we will play around with this in FM23. I personally don't think that things have changed necessarily that much, but maybe I'm wrong. You can let me know. And so when you look at different things, it'll show you like the impact that changing a defensive line has. So the way that this is set up is that every single tactic is a basic tactic with no information in it and with basic players, except for the one thing that you're going to test, like high press, right? And so we're going to test and see what things are like with a high press line of engagement and 3 different types of defensive line, right? And they test for 2,880 matches and against opponents of equal strength, basically, and see what impact it has. Oh, and look, there is no impact. There's nothing different that happens after this. Oh, the much higher defensive line gave up maybe 1 extra goal. It still finished with the same number of points. That's very surprising to me. Yep, there's a lot of tactical instructions that almost do nothing, right? Interesting. Some of these will perhaps be surprising to you. So here's the counter press. All we're doing is counter press with the high defensive line, high press, which we know doesn't do anything. And counter press on or off also has no effect. I bet you weren't expecting that. All right, there's a whole bunch of these. We're not going to go through every single one of them. But what we're going to do next is I'm going to go through in Football Manager after going through these threads. And we're going to create the meta tactic by looking at everything that works. And we're just going to stick it together and see what it looks like. All right, guys, here we go. And we have our meta tactic. What we're going to do is we'll allow the assistant coach to choose the team this time, so we'll get away from the ridiculous tactic. And the truth is there's not really too much to it. Now, we haven't looked at the actual formation itself. We haven't done any special player instructions or anything like that. We've kept the mentality at balance. As you'll recall, I did a video earlier that talked about how the balanced mentality in tactic testing actually did better, at least in FM23, than the positive or attacking mentalities you often see. It's a really simple tactic because a lot of stuff per testing doesn't mean much. We did slightly shorter passing directness and higher tempo, though honestly, the difference between that test and this, keeping that at standard, is not very apparent. I didn't see any test for time wasting, so I'm not sure if it makes much of a difference one way or another. Counter press, interestingly enough, also does not seem to make a huge difference when it comes to playing games over time. So we'll test this in a second and see how it does in one match, sample size of 1. Out of possession, basically, you want a much higher defensive line per the test, but the mid block is fine. Triggering the press much more often is something that is useful, and then also getting stuck in tends to help out as well. But the real point of this is to point out that in Football Manager, it's really not just about your tactic, it's about your attributes. That's the thing that is going to make the biggest difference. Remember, with Manchester City playing with a tactic that is so ridiculous, it shouldn't be named. Yesterday, we were able to draw a match that we obviously should have lost, right? Because we didn't have any business playing that tactic. So let's try this again. Let's see what happens with the instant result. Now, remember that the RNG is pretty heavy in this game, so we might win, we might not win. We'll see what happens. And when we finish here with that tactic, we win 1-0. Right? So does that mean that the tactic necessarily works and that it's a slam dunk or anything like that? Not necessarily. But what this absolutely does mean is that this tactic is not some broken thing that will totally fall apart, right? And I think that that's really the important thing to sort of take from a lot of this testing. Though it kind of disagrees with a lot of our set beliefs about Football Manager and the way that we would like to create tactics in the game, the truth is that, as I've said before, a lot of those sliders and buttons do nothing. They really do nothing. Here, I will show you in case you are still skeptical about this. So we go back over here and look into some of these tests and the things that they do. My favorite is the counter press test, right? And so we did a test, or they did a test, with a higher defensive line, high press, and much more often, harassing the goalkeeper, which I didn't put on. And they just put on counter press, nothing else going with it. And this was the results. With counter press on and counter press off, there was not much of a difference. Now, there is a chance that certain combinations of things and tactics do make a difference. My understanding is that there's been a lot of look at some of these things, and that it takes a while because you have a whole ton of different combinations to look at, but there's been at least a little bit of look into this so far. So we can't conclusively say that having like nothing in your tactic is the best way to go. But when it comes to this endless debate about which tactic is better than which, and did Football Manager nerf this part of the match engine or that part of the match engine with the latest update, you need to keep in mind that over the long haul, random number generation in Football Manager makes a massive, massive difference, and that this meta tactic that we've come up with is empty and has nothing in it. I mean, again, if you do not believe this, if you want to see it again, we'll pick any one of these things. Like we'll look at overlaps left and right, or working the ball into the box, and see that with overlaps left and right turned on or off, there's like no difference at all. Right? Everything else held equal. Working the ball into box, turned on or off, there's no difference, right? That's the sort of thing that we're talking about, right? Love to know what your thoughts are. Let me know down below. Talk to you later. Bye.